The beauty of Naya, a gift or a curse. In the heart of the West African highlands, where the mountains kissed the clouds and the forest whispered secrets only the wind could understand, there nestled a village called Ikena. Surrounded by lush green trees and rivers that sang lullabies to the moon, Ikena was a place untouched by time. Children played barefoot on dusty red paths, elders sat beneath baobab trees trading tales, and the rhythm of drums always seemed to echo somewhere in the background. Among the villagers was a young woman named Naya, a name that fluttered through the village like a soft breeze, always followed by a sigh or a smile. Naya was, well, otherworldly. She had eyes like dusk, calm, deep, and shimmering with quiet secrets. Her skin, smooth as river stones, seemed to glow even without the sun. Her hair flowed like black silk, often woven with tiny beads and herbs that gave off a scent of lavender and lemongrass. She didn't walk, she glided, like the earth itself shifted to meet her step. But it wasn't just her beauty that made her beloved. Naya was kind. The kind of kind that made people believe in goodness. She nursed injured birds, sat with widows, helped deliver babies, and made medicine for sick children. Everyone loved her, or at least, they wanted to. Because under that admiration, a whisper stirred. A whisper that said, Naya hasn't aged since she was 16. At first, it was dismissed. Maybe she just had good skin. Maybe her mother had the same genes. Maybe she drank a lot of water. But when the years passed and she remained exactly the same, flawless and ageless, the whisper turned into rumor, and the rumor grew teeth. Some said she was a witch. Others said she was a forest spirit in disguise. And some just nodded solemnly and muttered, no human stays that perfect without help. Naya ignored the gossip. She continued to smile, to help, to heal. But she also began to withdraw. No one noticed that she avoided sunlight for long stretches. Or that she never ate during village feasts. Or that she always disappeared during the full moon. But Tari noticed. Tari was 16, all elbows and questions. A wide-eyed village girl with too much curiosity and not enough sense, according to her grandmother. She adored Naya, idolized her, really. She followed her like a shadow, secretly trying to copy her braids, her walk, her soft way of speaking. One evening, as the full moon rose, bright and bold in the sky, Tari spotted Naya slipping quietly out of the village, her body wrapped in a dark shawl, her footsteps silent. But the moon betrayed her, casting her shadow as she moved through the edge of the trees. Tari's heart raced. This was her chance. The whispers. The mystery. The truth. She followed. Through thick underbrush and winding paths she'd never dared explore alone, Tari crept behind Naya. The deeper they went, the stranger the forest seemed. Trees leaned in like they were listening. A soft humming filled the air, not from Naya, but the forest itself. Finally, in a small moonlit clearing surrounded by vines and silver-lit trees, Naya stopped. Tari hid behind a thick bush, barely breathing. Naya knelt beside a ring of stones, inside which lay herbs that glowed faintly, green and gold and deep violet. She pulled out a bowl, crushed the herbs with rhythmic, practiced movements, and began to chant. The language was unfamiliar, ancient, like the forest itself. Then, she took a small vial from her belt and added a single drop of dark liquid to the mixture. The concoction shimmered like stardust. As she applied the mixture gently to her face, neck, and arms, the air around her shimmered. For a moment, just a moment, Tari thought she saw wings. Not bird wings. Not insect wings. Something older, stranger. Then they were gone. And just like that, it was over. Naya packed up her tools and disappeared into the woods without a trace, leaving behind only the faint scent of crushed herbs, and one small item, a silver comb, its handle carved with runes that seemed to pulse faintly in the moonlight. Tari's curiosity burned hotter than her fear. She crept into the clearing and reached for the comb. The moment her fingers touched it, she felt a pulse, like the forest had exhaled into her skin. A low whisper echoed through the trees. She jerked her hand back. But the damage was done. Something unseen had noticed her. She ran all the way back home, heart hammering, breath shallow. She clutched the comb tightly, unable to explain why she didn't just drop it. Something in her wanted it. She would return it tomorrow. Surely. Right. But that night, she couldn't sleep. Her dreams were filled with glowing herbs, whispering trees, and Naya's eyes, now glowing gold and locked directly on her. Whispers in the wind, when curiosity turns dangerous. The night after her forbidden journey into the forest, Tari woke up in a cold sweat. The stars had long since disappeared, swallowed by heavy clouds. Outside her window, the wind whistled through the trees like it carried secrets meant only for the dark. She could still feel the faint hum in her fingers from where she touched Naya's silver comb. It now sat carefully hidden beneath her pillow, warm even though the night air was cool. She told herself she'd return it. Tomorrow. Maybe. But the dreams started that same night. They were vivid. Too vivid. She wandered through forests that twisted and shifted as she walked. Trees leaned in and whispered her name, Tari. Tari, in voices that sounded like rustling leaves and distant drums. Shadows with long fingers reached for her, brushing past her shoulders with invisible hands. And always in the distance, a figure. A woman. Glowing. Floating. Watching. Tari woke each time just before the woman's face came into view, her throat dry, her sheets soaked with sweat. She stopped speaking as much during the day. Her once bright laugh, which rang through a canal like morning bird song, faded into silence. Her eyes, once wide and full of wonder, grew shadowed, rimmed with sleeplessness. When her grandmother asked what was wrong, she only shook her head. Bad dreams, she whispered. That's all. But deep inside, Tari knew something had changed. She felt it in her bones, in her very breath. Across the village, Naya sat quietly inside her home, staring at her cracked mirror. She felt it, too. Something was wrong. The balance she had carefully maintained for years, between beauty and cost, secrecy and survival, had been disturbed. The forest had shifted. The winds carried whispers not meant for mortal ears. Her skin, once vibrant with its unnatural glow, now felt thinner. Like a layer of something had been peeled away. She saw Tari in the village square, pale, withdrawn, eyes darting like a deer's before a storm, and her heart sank. The girl had followed her. And worse, the forest had seen her. Naya tried to withdraw. She avoided the market, skipped her daily walks, and stayed indoors. But she knew isolation would only delay the inevitable. The forest didn't forget. And neither did spirits. Meanwhile, Tari could not stop thinking about the ritual she had witnessed. She tried to mimic it innocently, at first. Using crushed leaves and flower petals from her grandmother's garden, she whispered the sounds she remembered Naya chanting. She didn't know what they meant, but they felt powerful. Important. As if the words themselves pulled something forward from the air. She held the silver comb tightly as she did it. The carvings along its spine now glowed faintly in the dark, as if the moonlight had imprinted itself inside. Every time she repeated the chants, she felt a little stranger. Her head would spin. Her room would feel colder. And once, when she looked in the mirror, her reflection blinked a half-second too late. But still, she continued. The first real warning came 3 nights later. Tari woke up standing outside. In her nightgown. Barefoot. In the exact spot where she first saw Naya's ritual in the forest. Her hands were smeared with mud. The comb was clutched tightly in her palm. She had no memory of how she got there. She ran home through the trees, branches scratching her skin, her breath coming out in panicked bursts. When she finally reached her house, her grandmother was already waiting at the door, eyes wide with fear, holding a burning herb bundle and whispering prayers. "Tari," she said, her voice shaking. "Something is following you." That morning, Mama Yuzo, the village's oldest and wisest woman, was sitting under the great baobab tree sipping bitter tea when the wind shifted. She paused. She'd lived through droughts, famines, and wars. She'd helped deliver babies and bury kings. Her bones were wrapped in stories, and her skin remembered every storm. And this wind was wrong. It wasn't just air. It carried watchers. Spirits. Hungry ones. By noon, she had made 3 protective charms and instructed her grandson to hang them around the village's edge. She spoke quietly to the earth, asking what had changed. And the earth whispered back. "The balance is broken." As the days passed, Tari began to waste away. She rarely ate. She didn't play. She flinched when her name was called and often stared off into the distance, as if listening to something no one else could hear. At night, her room filled with a strange smell, sweet and rotten, like flowers dying too soon. The silver comb was now with her at all times. She braided her hair with it. She slept with it beside her. Her grandmother tried to take it once and burned her fingers. Naya, watching silently from afar, knew what was happening. Tari had touched a tool imbued with spirit-bound essence. The comb was never meant for another. It had accepted Tari's energy as an offering, and now, it wanted more. One evening, under a sky smeared with copper and indigo, Mama Yuzo summoned Naya. They sat across from each other on a mat woven with ancestral symbols, the fire between them crackling like it had something to say. "I know what you've done," Mama Yuzo said softly. "And I know what is coming." Naya didn't deny it. "I tried to keep the balance," she said, her voice trembling. "I never meant for anyone to follow me." Mama Yuzo's eyes darkened. "You're not the first to bargain with the forest. But even the cleverest trader must pay." Naya bowed her head. "She touched it," she whispered. "She saw too much. Now the spirits, they want her." Mama Yuzo nodded slowly. "Then we must protect her. Before the wind carries her away completely." The secret of the Mira root. The night was heavy with silence. In Ikena, silence was rarely this deep. Usually, the nocturnal lullabies of insects, frogs, and wind told you that the land was alive. But on this night, even the trees seemed to hold their breath. Mama Yuzo walked slowly, her cane tapping softly against the packed earth. She wore a long robe made of deep blue cloth, patterned with white cowrie shells. Around her neck hung an amulet carved from old ebony wood, said to contain the voice of her ancestors. Her steps were deliberate, not because she was slow, but because she knew when not to rush. She was going to see Naya. The door to Naya's hut opened before Mama Yuzo could knock. Naya stood inside, eyes hollow with exhaustion, lips pressed in a thin, tired line. "I knew you would come," Naya said quietly, stepping aside. "I had no choice," Mama Yuzo replied, entering. "The forest has started talking again. And it's speaking your name." The hut was dimly lit, warm, and smelled faintly of herbs, oils, and smoke. A cracked mirror stood in the corner, draped with fabric as if hiding its reflection. Naya moved gracefully, but her hands shook when she poured the tea. They sat in silence for a long while. Only the sound of the fire crackling, popping like it, too, had secrets to share. Finally, Mama Yuzo spoke. "You've been given a gift, child. But I sense the weight of it on your shoulders. What is it that keeps you from sleep?" Naya stared into her cup. Then, slowly, she began to speak. "There is a plant," Naya whispered. "Hidden deep in the forest, Mira root. It grows only near the oldest tree, the one they say was planted by the gods before men ever spoke. The leaves shimmer like silver. The roots are red, like blood drawn from the earth. Mama Yuzo nodded. She had heard of such a plant, but only in fragments, passed down in whispers and half-remembered tales. It was my mother who taught me about it, Naya continued. She was beautiful too. People feared her for it. She told me the forest had blessed our bloodline, but only with obedience. We were allowed to borrow beauty, not keep it. She reached behind her and pulled a small jar from the shelf. Inside were dried herbs, faintly glowing under the candlelight. This is mira root. Mixed with other herbs, it binds to your essence. It grants agelessness. But not freely. Mama Yuzo leaned forward. What does it ask for? Naya's eyes dropped. An offering. A piece of yourself. A truth. A sacrifice. I was supposed to complete the final ritual when I turned 21. But I hesitated. I thought maybe I could trick it. Take the beauty, avoid the price. Mama Yuzo's expression darkened. You tried to bargain with something older than time, child. Naya nodded. I thought the spirit would forget. But it didn't. It waited. And when Tari followed me, it found a new path. The air in the hut grew colder. Mama Yuzo's amulet vibrated softly against her chest. It's feeding from her, Naya said, her voice cracking. I didn't mean for her to be part of this. But when she touched the comb, she invited the spirit's gaze. She's just a child, Mama Yuzo said sharply. I know. Naya cried. But the spirit doesn't care about age. It only cares about balance. She stood up and pulled the cloth from the mirror. Mama Yuzo gasped quietly. Naya's reflection was not the one sitting before her. In the mirror, Naya looked older. Her face was gaunt, her eyes sunken. Her hair was streaked with grey. It was as if the mirror had peeled away the magic and shown the truth. This mirror only shows what I would be, Naya said softly. What the spirit says I deserve, if I don't complete the offering. Mama Yuzo walked over slowly, peering at the reflection. You didn't finish the ritual, she said. And now, because of the disturbance, it's demanding a new balance. Naya nodded. It's taking bits of Tari's spirit. Her energy. Her dreams. Every night, a little more. Mama Yuzo clenched her fist. If we don't act soon, it won't stop at bits. It may take her entire life to restore the balance. Naya closed her eyes. I would give myself in her place, if I knew how. You may yet, Mama Yuzo replied, her voice grave. But this is no longer just your burden. The forest has awoken. And it's watching all of us. Back outside, the wind had returned, soft, whispering, playful on the surface, but carrying a chill that sank into the bones. Mama Yuzo turned at the door. There is still hope, Naya. But we must go into the forest. Face the spirit. Speak its name. Naya's lips trembled. I don't even know what it is. Oh, but I do, Mama Yuzo said, her eyes gleaming with old wisdom. It is called Oluma. The spirit of reflection. Bargain with the forest. Tari was fading. What began as fatigue and strange dreams had now turned into full-blown episodes. Her body remained in Ikeno, but her mind seemed to drift somewhere far beyond the reach of loved ones. She would murmur in her sleep, her voice carrying the cadence of an ancient tongue no one in the village recognized. Sometimes, she'd walk barefoot through the village at night, eyes wide open but empty, like a puppet with no strings. She whispered words in voices that didn't sound like her own. Words that chilled even the bravest hearts. Oloke. Oluma. Zinete. One night, her grandmother tried to hold her back during a sleepwalking episode. Tari turned her head, stared directly at her with a blank smile, and whispered. He is waiting. That night, even the owls didn't hoot. Across the village, Naya was unraveling. She hadn't slept in days. Her skin was losing its glow. The scent of lemongrass that once lingered around her now smelled faintly of burnt leaves. Her own reflection in the mirror no longer obeyed her. It blinked late, smiled wrong, sometimes frowned when she didn't. She could no longer bear the weight of her silence. So, she returned. Wrapped in her cloak of dark cloth, barefoot as always, Naya stepped once again into the deep woods, this time not with purpose, but with desperation. The forest welcomed her like a jealous lover. The trees swayed in unnatural rhythms. Leaves crackled despite the absence of wind. The air was thick, too warm, and full of buzzing that wasn't quite sound. She walked until she reached the clearing of the mirror root. And there it was. Oluma. The spirit of reflection. It didn't walk or glide. It simply was. A towering, robed figure that shimmered like moonlight on still water. Its face was a blank mask, smooth and silver, and yet somehow expressive. And in that mask, Naya saw herself, aged, broken, weeping. "You have returned, child of vanity," it said, its voice like hundreds of whispers speaking in unison. "I didn't mean for this," Naya said, trembling. She's just a girl. She didn't know. And yet she touched what was not hers. "You failed the pact. Balance must be restored." Naya fell to her knees. "Take me, then," she whispered. "Take me instead." Oluma moved slowly, like fog rolling over stones. "You offer yourself. But not in full. You still cling to beauty." "I'll give it up," she said quickly. "All of it. Just let her go." Oluma was silent. Then it offered her a choice, a cruel one. "Give us the girl's spirit. She has already been touched. Her essence is marked. Offer her, and you will keep your youth, your beauty. All shall love you. All shall adore you." Naya's heart pounded. "Or," the spirit continued, "refuse, and your beauty will drain away. Slowly, painfully. You will wander these woods, cursed and alone, for eternity, no longer admired, no longer remembered." The forest darkened. Naya's voice broke. There must be another way. But Oluma simply watched her, unmoving. "Decide. Before the sun touches the roots." Back in Ikeno, Mama Yuzo gathered a circle of trusted villagers. They met in secret behind the old shrine near the riverbank, men and women who remembered the old stories, the forgotten names, the real power in herbs and blood and chant. They lit 7 fires in a circle, laid protective charms at each direction, and ground herbs into ash. Mama Yuzo held a woven basket containing goat's teeth, dried river stones, and the heart-shaped leaves of the umbik tree, used only when spirits refused to listen. They would perform a cleansing ritual, one strong enough to sever the bond between spirit and host. But it would require strength, unity, and a direct confrontation. "Tari's spirit is being pulled," Mama Yuzo told them. "Like a bird caught in a storm. We must anchor her before she's lost completely." The villagers nodded, hands shaking but hearts steady. The ritual would begin at moonrise. As the sun began to dip below the mountains, Naya stood still in the clearing, staring at Oluma. In the fading light, the spirit's reflection mask shifted. Now it showed not her face, but Tari's. Pale, hollow-eyed, reaching out. Naya screamed, clutching her head. "This beauty was never yours," Oluma whispered. "It was borrowed. And the debt must be paid." Naya fell to her knees, the silver comb falling from her robe onto the forest floor. She picked it up, stared at it, the very thing that had seduced her all these years. The source of her confidence, her praise, her power. Her curse. She held it to her chest. "I choose true beauty, the price paid, the wisdom gained." The moment the sun kissed the root of the great forest trees, Naya spoke. I choose myself. The words once shouted, they were breathed. Carried by the wind, had not with ears but with spirit. Oluma, the spirit of reflection, tilted its silver face ever so slightly. The mask shimmered once, and cracked. So be it, child. You shall learn the weight of your vanity. The clearing darkened like a storm cloud had smothered the moon. Trees bowed low. The ground beneath Naya's knees turned cold. Then, it began. A sharp pulse hit her chest, like her very heartbeat had been yanked from rhythm. The glow that always followed her skin began to flicker, then fade. Her hair dulled, her lips cracked, and her eyes dimmed. The air filled with the scent of dried herbs and scotch petals. She screamed, but not from pain. From release. At the same time, back in Ikena, the villager secretary, who lay motionless beside Mama Yuzo. Her chest barely rose. Her lips whispered things only spirits could hear. Mama Yuzo's arms stretched high, chanting in the tone of the old ones. The flames in the 7 fires shot upward, twisting and pulsing with unseen energy. Spirit of balance, she called, of earth and breath, of root and blood, reclaim what was stolen, protect the innocent, seal what was undone. The wind howled. The trees leaned forward. The charms around the village rattled like bones. And in the center, a glow began to rise, not from Tari, but from the air around her. The forest heard. And it answered. In the clearing, Oluma faltered. Its mask rippled. They are interfering. Naya stood, barely able to breathe. Her beauty, now almost entirely gone, peeled from her like old bark. But her spine was straight, her gaze steady. They are restoring what you tried to twist. The spirit lashed out, branches cracked, wind slammed against her body. The silver comb at her feet shattered into 100 glittering shards, which swirled like angry fireflies before disappearing into smoke. Mama Yuzo's voice echoed through the forest, carried by power beyond the physical. Your hold ends now, Oluma. Return to the shadow. Leave the child. Release the soul. The spirit shrieked, not in pain, but in frustrated defiance. Then, it began to dissolve, piece by piece, like a reflection wiped from a mirror. Before it vanished fully, it turned its mask toward Naya one last time. This was not the end. Vanity has many faces. I will return, when the heart of another burns for what is not theirs. And then it was gone. The forest exhaled. In Ikena, Tari stared. Her eyes fluttered open. Her skin looked brighter, her lips pink again. She blinked at the people gathered around her, confused. Why is everyone crying? She remembered nothing. No dreams. No whispers. Just peace. Mama Yuzo wept silently and whispered thanks to the ancestors. Naya stumbled back into the village at dawn. Her skin was wrinkled, her hair silvered, her posture slower, but her face held something she had never had before. Peace. The villagers stared. Not in horror. Not in pity. But in awe. They saw someone who had stared down a spirit and chosen someone else's life over her own power. That kind of beauty needed no magic. Over time, Naya took her place beside Mama Yuzo, not as an enchantress, but as a teacher. She led circles of young girls, telling them stories, not of forest spirits, but of self-worth, courage, and the deep, radiant power of truth. She told them, the face in the mirror will change. But the person behind the eyes, that's the reflection that matters. The girls listened, wide-eyed. And slowly, the whispers that once trailed her became songs of praise and legacy. But stories, like spirits, rarely sleep forever. One day, under a sky painted gold by the evening sun, a stranger arrived in Ikena. A woman wrapped in vibrant cloth, her skin flawless, her eyes sharp like cut obsidian. She smiled at everyone, but the kind of smile that lingered a second too long. She passed the puddle beside the well. Paused. And stared. Too long. Naya, sitting nearby with a group of girls, saw it. Her heart beat once, heavier than it should have. The spirit was gone. But its echo had returned. The end.